Peaches did not step into the world of the elite at Fairmont Crest like a fleeting breeze. She arrived like a storm, sweeping away everything that had once seemed unshakable in the Montgomery legacy. When she declared that Leslie was Barbara's long-lost daughter, the atmosphere, already thick with intrigue, grew heavier with the scent of suspicion, opportunity, and danger. Barbara's recent death had already fractured the family, especially with no resolution yet on the inheritance disputes, and now Peach's claim, coming from someone outside the system, acted like a catalyst, collapsing an already fragile structure. What made her revelation so shocking was not only the content, but also the timing. The coincidence between Barbara's death and the sudden rise of a woman who claimed to hold the key to a new heir was enough to make everyone stop and look at each other with doubt. But when Peaches insisted that Leslie was Barbara's long-lost daughter, and she herself, supposedly standing at death's door, only wanted to fulfill a final wish, the matter no longer resembled a simple unearthing of truth. It became a chess match, with the first player perhaps concealing the ultimate trump card. Peaches brought no documents, no biological proof to back up her words. She offered no DNA results, no official medical records confirming that she was dying. No hospital, no doctors, no witnesses, only her own claims. In a family where wealth and power are guarded by lawyers and sealed transactions, such an outsider with baseless declarations could easily be dismissed as a fraud. But she might also be the bearer of a dangerous truth no one wanted to confront. The most disturbing part was that everything she said could be true. In a world built on layers of secrets, where adopted children, biological heirs, missing children, and hidden offspring constantly traded places, even the most outrageous stories became plausible. Leslie's reaction reflected this tension. Hesitant, conflicted, half-believing, half-doubting, with a faint, almost desperate hope flickering amidst the storm of suspicion. Yet, on closer thought, Peaches had not come merely to reveal a truth. She emerged like a seasoned player, planting seeds of doubt not only in Leslie's heart, but also in the wider power network of the Montgomerys. Each word she spoke was a calculated move, and by refusing to provide evidence while emphasizing her impending death, she exuded the scent of manipulation. She did not demand inheritance, at least not yet, but she reshaped the playing field in ways that would make any lawyer wary. If Peaches was lying, then to what end? Perhaps greed, aiming for a slice of Barbara's vast fortune. Perhaps revenge, with Leslie merely a pawn, while the real goal was to destabilize the Montgomery succession and plunge the family into crisis. Or perhaps she had once been complicit in a child switch and now sought redemption, but lacking the courage or means to speak the whole truth, she chose instead to weave a half-truth, half-lie. Another unsettling theory arises. What if Peaches were truly Leslie's biological mother, and Barbara merely raised the child for honor or political convenience? In the world of Fairmont Crest, where image and power dictated every action, adopting a child to bury a scandal was entirely believable. If Peaches had once given birth to Leslie but lost her due to youth, circumstance, or pressure from Barbara's own family, then her reappearance as a truth-teller could be a form of spiritual atonement before death. But if that were the case, why no documents? Why no witnesses? Were the records destroyed? Or did Barbara herself intervene to bury the evidence? More troubling was Anita's reaction. Known for her vast network and intelligence, Anita appeared uncertain at the news of Peach's return. This raised suspicions that Anita herself might be hiding part of the truth, or that she and Peaches had once shared a pact, now broken. And when Anita is mentioned, Dani cannot be ignored. While all eyes turned to Leslie, a darker scenario quietly emerged. What if Dani were Barbara's true daughter, and Peach's actions were only a distraction? By thrusting Leslie into the spotlight, Peaches not only diverted attention from Dani, but also created gaps in verifying the real story. Perhaps Peaches knew the truth but withheld it to protect someone. Or perhaps she played a double game, shifting the balance of power between factions. More chilling still was the possibility that Barbara's real child had long been dead, and Peaches was exploiting a void of information to craft a new legend. A still more dangerous variation lurks. What if Peaches had once been directly involved in separating Leslie from Barbara? Not out of guilt now, but to reclaim control of the narrative. She may have calculated that Leslie, deprived of identity all her life, would be highly vulnerable to tales of belonging and emotional promises. A woman like Leslie, who had always sought her origin, might embrace a truth without proof, simply because it sounded right and felt right. But if Leslie were only leveraging this supposed revelation to climb the ladder of power, then she herself would be little more than a co-conspirator in Peach's elaborate fabrication. The blurred line between motives and emotions was precisely what trapped the audience, refusing to let them look away. Peach's arrival triggered ripple effects far beyond Leslie. Family members began to eye each other differently, alliances once firm now showing cracks as loyalties were tested. If Leslie was the rightful heir, who would lose? Who would be cast aside? And if she were an imposter, who orchestrated the script? It was this uncertainty that gripped the audience, making them wager their emotions, instincts, and logic with every twist. Now Peaches stood at the crossroads of two extremes. On one side, the portrait of a woman ravaged by time, burdened with guilt, struggling to cleanse her soul before death. On the other, the image of a master manipulator, expertly exploiting weaknesses to her advantage. No one knew which face was real. All they knew was that each time Peaches opened her mouth, the truth grew hazier. And perhaps, it was this very ambiguity that fueled the next twists in Beyond the Gates, where legacy was never just land or shares, but memory, identity, and truths that had never dared to be named. And as Peaches stood between those two opposing faces, another crucial element began to emerge from the shadows, the notion of choosing memory over truth. What Peaches told could be real, could be false, but it was strong enough to reframe Leslie's entire perception of herself. In a world where power was defined by bloodline, no one wanted to live without knowing where they belonged, and even fewer would ignore a chance to claim a disputed inheritance. That was the perfect trap, where emotions and interests blended into a dangerous motivation. Leslie, in her attempt to understand who she was, began to act as though Peach's words were fact, despite never having seen a DNA test, never cross-checking any information with medical records or personal files. It made one wonder, was Leslie truly following her intuition, or was she merely using it as a mask for her desire to be recognized and to possess? Meanwhile, Anita's calculated silence only deepened the web of confusion. As the keeper of so many Montgomery secrets, Anita could not possibly be unaware if there truly had been a lost child. So why did she neither deny nor confirm? Was this a strategy to maintain balance so she could act depending on which way the wind blew? Or had she herself been caught off guard, but instead of reacting emotionally, chosen the strategic path, to observe and wait? Yet if Anita knew more than she admitted, what stopped her from producing proof to debunk Peach's claim? A theory slowly surfaced. Anita might know the true identity of Barbara's child, but that child was not Leslie, which led to a chilling possibility. The real heir had either died or could not return for some reason, and allowing Peaches to construct a replacement heir might be the only way to preserve a crumbling system. Dani, once on the sidelines, suddenly found herself pulled into the eye of the storm. Tiny details from the past that had always gone unnoticed now became vital puzzle pieces in the bigger picture. Similarities between Dani and Barbara, once dismissed as coincidence, were now scrutinized with intensity. Anita's wary, protective demeanor whenever Dani was mentioned, so unlike how she treated others, added fuel to suspicion. And if Dani was indeed Barbara's biological daughter, then Peach's entire tale was nothing more than a masterful distraction, designed to obscure or delay the unveiling of the truth. What made this even more dangerous was the possibility that Peaches knew about the exchange or switch from long ago, perhaps even participated. and that her current actions were less about revelation and more about restructuring power through a calculated choice between Leslie and Dani. Point 1 cannot ignore the fact that Peaches had once shared a murky relationship with Barbara. Some whispered they were sisters. Others claimed they had been close friends who once gave birth in the secrecy of a philanthropic program, where unwanted children were adopted into the upper class. If that theory held true, Peaches might have been the one to help Barbara hide the birth. And now, staring death in the face, she wanted to cleanse her soul. But was her move truly about redemption, or was it her final play to ensure she did not die in obscurity, but was remembered as the woman who held the key to the Montgomerys' greatest upheaval? The possibility remained that Leslie was nothing more than a pawn in Peaches' hands, exploited through either gullibility or blind ambition. Leslie's rash actions, once given the chance to approach the inheritance, from signing documents without verification to persuading others that she was the rightful heir, revealed she was being driven by something more powerful than curiosity about her origins. Perhaps it was the pain of abandonment, the hunger to prove her worth, or simply the lure of entering a world from which she had always been excluded. If that were true, then Leslie was neither victim nor witness, but a reckless player in a game she could not control. Another crucial point was the terminal illness Peaches so often emphasized. Across many episodes, she showed none of the signs of a weakening body. No medication, no doctors, no symptoms, only words. Viewers could not help but doubt. Was the illness real, or merely a tool of emotional persuasion to justify her sudden presence? A self-proclaimed dying woman was easier to forgive, easier to listen to, and her words more readily perceived as truthful. But for that very reason, such a claim became a weapon in the hands of a skilled manipulator. If Peaches was in fact healthy, using the image of a dying woman as a disguise, then her entire narrative was a cruelly orchestrated deception, crafted with precision from her gaze, to her tone of voice, to her carefully chosen timing. The truth was, whether people believed her or not, Peaches had accomplished something no one else had in all this time. She shattered the Montgomerys' false stability. What had once seemed certain, bloodlines, inheritance, the family structure, was now ambiguous and questioned. Internal divisions, mutual suspicion among characters, the rise of unexpected alliances, and the sudden vanishing of key figures, all were direct consequences of Peaches' initial claim. And this was only the beginning. For in a world where everyone had something to hide, a well-crafted lie could easily become truth, at least until someone dared to tear it apart. In the episodes to come, what mattered most was not who told the truth, but who controlled the story. And when physical proof finally appeared, DNA, documents, or living witnesses, the entire board could shift, either confirming Peaches' words or toppling them to reveal her as the architect of the greatest deception in soap opera history. Yet by then, Peaches would already have achieved what no one else could, forcing every character to face the most dangerous version of themselves. When greed, fear, and the need for love were all placed on the same scale, with no one knowing which side would weigh heavier. And for that reason, she became the irreplaceable center of the political, emotional storm consuming the Montgomery family day by day.